Welcome back to episode number 22 of the OG Rivals podcast. I am one of your hosts, Miles Teddick, the Packer fan here on this podcast. And I am just, I got the sunglasses on. I got the piping hot beverage because that matches my playoff hopes right now. I am all sorts of optimistic right now, and joined by somebody who is more than ready to get to this offseason, the Bears fan on this podcast, Sir Miguel Prado. How you doing, sir?
Let's go, Miles. Happy New Year. It's a new year. Same
New Year.
Bad back. I'll go ahead and just, since we're on Life Leaf, I'll plug what I'm using right now. A little deep comforts, Life Leaf remedies.
Right.
Topical. Just applying that to a sore back. So hopefully on the mend here. Looking at a bright off season. I mean, you're still in full holiday mode, Miles.
Well, so here's the deal. We talked about fan superstition before, and I have not abandoned any of that. So same polo now for I don't know how many episodes straight. We got the hat on. Added the sunglasses, can't get rid of the nice wreath with the, or garland, with the lights. I got to just stay in the same mood and just keep riding this wave that's clearly working. It's clearly because of me that this streak is happening right now.
It is. And in our macroeconomic climate, you are not contributing to the supply chain shortage of any laundry detergent, because I'm sure that polo is... It's full, chock full of victories. So you can't wash those away.
It is. It is. But hey, look, I've kept this thing pretty darn clean, man. There's no stains, I don't think, to be found. This, excellent anti-wrinkle fabric we got going on keeps it looking fresh. I mean, really, and I got an undershirt on, so I've been keeping
it fresh,
keeping some maintenance. Yeah, and doing some things to last, right? Yeah. Let's put some endurance behind this superstition.
Well, the endurance in those batteries on that light up beanie are impressive, Miles. And let's give some credit where credit's due. Now, you called that bit of a competitive push here at the end of the season. Now looking like we're knocking on the door for Packer Nation on potentially a play-in here Week 18 of the NFL season. How's that feel, Miles?
Man, it feels great, and I'm happy to eat every word of doubt that I had before. I don't think that any of that was misplaced, but it was always with the caveat of, well, if these guys turn it around, So look, they turned it around. What happened? I don't know what happened. Was it cutting Sammy Watkins? Was there some kind of cancer there? Was it, just a particularly inspiring moment when, they beat the Rams or, played well against the Eagles? I don't know what it is, but they clearly figured something out. They clearly have turned something around. Aaron Rodgers seems to be in a better mood. He's praising people on McAfee Weekly now instead of throwing people under the bus with cryptic language, So there's been a total shift in something. I'm happy to see it. It was seemingly just in time, but we can't count any chickens before they hatch because, the Lions was arguably one of their worst games this season. Aaron Rodgers with 3 interceptions, receivers on the ground left and right. That was the infamous episode 17 that we didn't get to put out there. Or no, episode 15, the missing episode 15, where I was just super critical of the receivers left and right, critical of our friend, is it Jason Vrabel, the receivers coach? These guys were on the ground. They looked like JV high school players. So from that bottom point, they have now rebounded and look like a threatening group of young men out there with a few vets peppered in. So very excited to see everything. Don't want to get too far into it right up front. But, yeah, there's loads of things to be excited about. Happy to eat every word of doubt that I had before because they turned it around. That's really what it comes down to. So, man, I'm excited to see what they can do against the Lions. The Lions are, not looking terrible fresh off a kick in your butt. Good Lord, man. I was I was ready for the streak to end.
Listen,
I didn't get to post last week's episode yet, but I called the streak to end on this, and it did not end.
no, so we're beyond it ending. We are in a full tank, Miles, and before we go into that 41-10 absolute rout that the Detroit Lions put on the Chicago Bears, how about you let us know about how we can get our hands on some Life Leaf remedies?
We all need to feel better today, y'all. We're starting off 2023, hopefully with some good momentum. I personally have had some good momentum, so there's things to ride there. I think it's easy to say the Packers have had some momentum, so it's there's some things to ride there for Packer fans. And the Bears, their offseason keeps getting better and better. So you guys even got some subtle momentum on your side there. So we all want to feel better. We all want to start this year off and make this year better than last. So if y'all want to feel better today, go check us out at lifeleafremedies.com. We are making effective natural remedies for things like sleep, immune support, and other areas that y'all are seeking relief. So check us out and learn more about all of these natural remedies that we have to offer. We're here to help y'all take better care of yourself and your loved ones. And if you do see something you like, any product at all, subscribe to it, get free shipping, get 10% off. You're in full control of that subscription. So cancel it right away if you're skeptical. Take advantage of the free shipping offer we've got out there. We're not going to take that away from you. We trust that you're going to really love this product and come back for it because you're going to feel better today. You're going to keep feeling better today. At least I want to keep feeling better today. Miguel has already demonstrated that he's trying to continue feeling better today with the deep comforts there. So check us out, y'all, lifeleafremedies.com, and feel better today. And if the OGs want to help us feel better today, what can they do for us?
Yeah, if you're OGs and you want to feel better today and you enjoy the podcast, don't forget to spike that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe, and talk about us at your next tailgate. And with that being said, Miles, I'm going to go off script here a little bit. It's 2023. It's a new year. If you have that lingering ache, pain, if you're struggling with sleep and you've just been thinking about what you can possibly do, just go and log on to that website at lifeleafremedies.com. The remedy that you're looking for is there. Whether it's the gummies, the soft gel capsules, the topical lotions, all of these are going to help you feel better. And if we can do that here in the new year and help you out, get to a nice start, do it. You're doing yourself a favor with that, and you will feel better today. I can attest to that. Like I said, I got my Deep Comforts topical right in front of me. I don't let it get too far right now with nursing that back. But speaking about nursing, Miles, I think that the Bears are in their cave. They're licking some wounds, and I think they're hibernating. They might be nursing some of them, very literally. And actually, that brings me to a point here that I wanted to address really early in our podcast, Miles, and that's the Monday night action that went down and Damar Hamlin. He's definitely top of mind. It seems like in every moment, even in this podcast, thinking about him. We've played football. You played at the collegiate level, and then we know what these pros put on the line day in and day out. And for our entertainment, right? I mean, let's call a spade a spade. They're out there balling out for entertainment purposes, and can just only pray that he makes a speedy recovery. Very scary moment, very physical game. And just wanted to give a quick shout out to him as he obviously, we're getting some positive reports coming out that he is responsive and not communicating vocally quite yet, but he did write on a piece of paper, did we win? Which I think is it's just so cool, man.
Heard about
the type of competitors that these guys are, and to just the selflessness, right, of waking up, your first conscious moments, and all you can think about is your teammates. So hats off to Damar, and prayers out to him and his family.
Absolutely. Completely echo 100% of that. Hoping for that complete recovery. Hopefully he's back on the field doing what he loves. It sounds like there's a lot of optimistic signs there for him, so definitely need to keep an eye on that. Such a wild moment. I've never, seen anything like that. I think there's only one other time where a game was actually canceled or something. It was like in the 30s or something like
Yeah.
that. So yeah, just a real scary moment. Certainly, saw a lot of games where I had teammates down or somebody on the other team went down, and very serious situations. Never had any games canceled, but every time that happens, it does kind of hit you a little
Oh,
bit.
absolutely.
Man, like shoot, like that got real, and just it is a game, and it is something that we're fortunate to enjoy. This is a fans podcast, right?
Yeah.
That's something that we do as fans, is we get to enjoy this game a lot and from a lot of different angles. So, grateful for these men putting their bodies on the line here, and
Very grateful.
ultimately they don't get any promises of walking away from
Yep.
it. So a lot of appreciation there, a lot of appreciation, good thoughts and prayers for him, for his family, for the whole team in Buffalo.
Yeah.
So for sure, man, glad you let us off with that.
Yeah.
I mean, now we do have to pick up. I know that there was someone we're not even going to name because he doesn't effing deserve it. But we do have to pick up with games and look up to what's next. Someone wanted to do that a little sooner than everybody else did on Twitter. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. The guy needs to just go away entirely. That's why I refuse to even just mention his name. But anyway,
Miles.
we have to pick our head up now, and we have to look up to these next games. I'm sure these players are having to deal with that in their own way.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily an easy thing to do that. But here we are, dude, running into this last week here of football. We've got the Packers against the Lions for all the marbles. We got who are the Bears even playing? Are they going to just what are they doing this
Well,
week?
we started off with the Bears going back to their cave and hibernating, licking some wounds. Meant that very literally, Miles. So they are playing this Week 18 game. It is Nathan Peterman Bowl. It is Nathan Peterman season officially. Justin Fields may not even suit up, so he's definitely not going to be playing. So he will be kept out of action going into Week 18. I personally agree with this move, personnel move. But before going too far into that, we did have that 41-10 loss on New Year's Day to Detroit. And that game, if I'm not mistaken, with Green Bay now, Detroit Green Bay is flexed into the final Sunday night football game of the season. So that game is completely full of playoff implications. Whereas the other NFC North matchup, which is the Bears and the Vikings, will not have playoff implications, as the Bears are already eliminated and the Vikings pretty much have that number one spot for NFC North contention. I believe the title there pretty safe as well. Might have to double check with that Green Bay.
I don't think the number one seed overall is locked up for
But
them,
the
though.
NFC
I think
North title, though,
they
is
need to.
it?
The North is locked up, but they could still lose the one seed, which would take them from having a first round bye to having to play in the first round.
That reinforces.
And that's where things get interesting.
Yeah, that reinforces my perspective on the game, which is the Bears essentially have nothing to play for, right? And they have Nathan Peterman that they're rolling out there with that banged up offensive line, that completely depleted wide receiver room, any sort of skill players rolling out there with Nathan Peterman. Good luck. The Vikings are playing for something, right? They're playing for essentially that first round bye. So I don't anticipate Minnesota coming into this game and just go ahead and wave a white flag or rest any sort of starters. I think that they're coming in here to win this game. If anything, Miles, this week's podcast episode for me, I couldn't find a Texans hat, but that's essentially the hat that I'm going to be wearing on Sunday. If they win that game against a division opponent in Indianapolis, the Bears lock up the number one overall draft pick. And then things get real interesting
Wow.
for the offseason.
Well, naturally, as OG rivals should, I'm rooting against you, man. Bears by
Yeah.
90. I'm rooting for Peterman to secure himself a future job here in the NFL, whether that's a backup or a starter. I think that he's got a chance to put some good tape
Stop.
out there
Come
and
on.
earn a job, keep himself in this league. All the young men that are taking that field are going to be inspired by trying to earn a job in the future in this
Receipts.
league, and
Receipts. Come on. Don't. We're the People's Podcast for a reason. We keep it
go
real.
Bears.
Miles is
Go
suddenly the
Bears.
biggest Nathan Peterman fan on the planet. Good for you, Miles. Good for you. Um, Justin Fields won't be suited up. He has that hip injury. He's on the injury report.
It's
But
all
the
right.
way you look at this weekend as a Bears fan is, just pour him cold and pour him often, because there's not going to be not much to be watching with Nathan Peterman under center.
Nope, I totally disagree. Bears fans, get it geared up. It's the Nathan Peterman Bowl. He is winning himself a future job in the NFL. He's gonna kick those purple nerds right in the.
We'll
Well, I'll
edit
edit
that
that out if I
out.
have to.
Right. You know what? No, we're the People's Podcast. You tune in.
That's what they
That's what
want
they
to
want to
hear.
hear. Well,
I saw a Twitter poll from somebody who's like, get rid of one fan, delete one fan base, and it was like the Vikings, the Cowboys, the Niners,
the
and
Broncos were
I
on
can't
there.
remember who the last one was, and there you saw
Yeah.
it. The Vikings won. You Vikings fans, you're the ones we could do
Guess who?
without.
Guess who? Yours truly
But
voted for a fan base that we can do without.
oh, it had to be the Cowboys.
That was a tough one for me, but I ended up voting for the Denver Broncos fan base.
Oh, that's right. I forgot we had this
I got a
conversation. I
bone. I
should
got
have
a
been on
bone to
top
pick
of
with
that.
them, so they're just on my forever list.
I remember that. I remember that. That's right. Yeah. No, and that's a fair vote for you. Keep the poll interesting there. I feel like
Yeah,
the
I think
appropriate
that was
fan
the
base won.
five
Anyway.
percent, 5 or 7% of that poll. So the Vikings, no kidding, they're
Oh man.
man, they're not rubbing anyone the right way, huh?
No, nobody likes the Vikings fans. So
Yeah.
you guys all are there's like you're the common denominator, all right? It's not just Packers fans that dislike you. It's not just Bears fans. It's you've pretty much hit the entire NFL with your weird little antics of always having excuses.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, we
Well,
can move on.
yeah.
We don't need to talk too much about these
Well,
frauds.
let's
I
talk
mean,
about Jair
Vikings.
Alexander locking up their prized receiver, right? Justin
Let's
Jefferson.
talk about
Yeah.
it. Let's talk about it, man. Because I was just on Twitter trying to get really fired up for this podcast, get like real, get the juices flowing, and jumped right square into a conversation where a Packers fan put up a clip of Jair and firing the guys up and talking about putting hands on 18 and then showing some of the replays, and the comments were just filled with all these purple tears. Oh, the field conditions. Oh, the refs weren't calling the play. There was taunting. Like, my goodness, y'all, would you come play football, please? Holy crap.
Yeah.
And that's why you're the most deletable fan base, because everybody sees that and they're like, well, he shut him down. Like, you just watch the film. He shut him down. He put hands on him. And I made the comment, right, about how when the Packers played the Lions last time, the Packers receivers were on the ground, like, way too much. I can't even remember how many plays it was. It was way too many plays. It wasn't like 1 or 2. It was like 8 or 10. And Jair Alexander put hands on Jefferson, and he was on the ground more than once, and that ruined a play. And it was all legal because it's contact within 5 yards. Jair's a smart dude. He's not dumb. He's out there playing rough, but it wasn't nearly as bad as some of the things we've seen against other receivers across the league. Now I'll say Packers receivers. Christian Watson has been just like a boat pulling skiers all year. The amount of holding that hasn't been called on that kid is wild.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I loved it. I loved every minute of it, man, because it really showed. And there's another thing here, another kind of a subtopic, or this is like a subtopic of the next topic. is Joe Barry as the defensive coordinator. It took him 2.5 seasons, and he finally figured out how to use a shutdown corner, one of the best shutdown corners in the league. It's like, where was this game one? Why were we not doing this game one? Clearly, the player wanted it and didn't get it. So yeah, very excited about this. I think that the fact that it took Joe Barry this long is an indictment on him, and regardless of the success that they found, like, they've got to move on from him this offseason. I'm dying on that hill. They could win the Super Bowl, and I still would want them to move on from him this offseason. Like, you got to get rid of that guy. But that said, like, this defense is showing how talented they are. Like, this is a talented defense. These guys are very good. They play well together when they're in sync. That was just overall a very exciting win. I loved it because I've been calling the Vikings frauds the last few weeks. I will post the episode 21 before this. We'll get that up there, and there's plenty of receipts on there. But they showed that, Kirk Cousins is a fraud. And I won't say that Justin Jefferson is a fraud. I think that, you go out and you get another matchup between these two teams and another Jair, 2-3 versus 1-8. I don't think he shuts him down for 1 for 15. I think, it's a little bit different, but the point being is I do believe Kirk Cousins is a fraud. Just as, he's got an all-time great receiver, and he had another one in Diggs, who, maybe he's not an all-time great, but he's pretty damn good. So he's had those guys making, and Thielen too. Let's not look past the things that he's accomplished. He's had a great stable of receivers making his job look way easier than it is. So I do not have any faith in Kirk Cousins. All the MVP hype got real quiet real quick when you guys realized that Lil Kirko is not what his 4-game stretch hyper focused thought it was. Like, it just, anyway, rant over. The purple people are frauds. If they don't show up this week, it's Bears by 90. I'm very, very pro Bears this week.
There's no way that I mean, first and foremost, I think that your Vikings impersonation is world class. I think that alone is a talent that needs to be shared with the world.
I'm not making a lot of friends on Twitter with that.
I think the Kirko is a fraud is maybe your first merchandising opportunity on the podcast. I think that those would sell in orange and navy, and in green and green and gold. So we got some merch opportunities coming out of here. You're just a content machine this year, Miles.
Hey man, I'm just watching the YouTube videos and seeing what they tell me to do.
There's no way that the Bears, two things: put up 90 points on offense this week, or beat Kirk Cousins and the Minnesota Vikings. But I mean, if you got time, Miles, we can watch the Kirk Cousins performance this weekend. But like I said, I fully anticipated not to take any wind out of the end of the episode with predictions and game previews. But I don't see this one turning out too good for the Bears. I think, like, going back to another episode we had, right, where I said players don't tank, organizations and front offices tank. I think, and I'm saying this, I'll go out on a limb here. I think that the tank is officially in the Bears front office. I think that this move, and shout out to Virginia McCaskey, it's her 100th birthday as we're recording this episode, Bears royalty there.
Wow. Happy birthday. My goodness.
I think that this is coming from Ryan Poles down throughout the personnel decisions on sitting Justin. I think that Justin, again, the wild card in every game. I mean, he can take over and put up those points, maybe not 90, but he had that streak where he was averaging over 30 points a game for that offense.
Yeah.
And so if you get into one of those NFC North, divisional games where we're coming down to a possession or two, and Justin can somehow find a way to win that game. I mean, we're talking about jumping down maybe 4 draft positions, right? Where it's like at that point, it's really not worth that moral victory there of getting that late season win versus the divisional opponent. So I think what they're doing is they're protecting the chips on the table. for that number 2. So worst case scenario, they get that number 2 draft pick, which right now, Miles, obviously coming off that holiday stretch where we had a lot of good football on college playoffs.
A lot of good
I think
football.
both of those players, C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young, I think they
Bryce Young.
played
Yeah.
played themselves into the 1 and 2 conversation, right? Where the Bears, if we take the scenario where Justin Fields is at least next year's quarterback, right? Then the Bears have no business being in those slots drafting either an interior lineman or a skill position, right? So the viable option at that point is trading down, getting a haul of picks, or we talked about it on this podcast. Again, tune in, folks. Is that trade for a true wide receiver 1? And some names that are being floated around. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, who's on the wrong end of 30 years old, but again, could be that security blanket for a developing franchise quarterback if you think that Fields is your guy, right? So there's some options there, but I think that the front office has seen the value in the top of that draft with that draft capital. And so I think that's why we're seeing Nathan Peterman being rolled out there. If this was a playoff game or a game with playoff implications, even with Justin Fields' hip being injured right now, he's suiting up and he's playing. And that's, I think, the main message that I want to communicate here is if this was any other circumstance, Justin Fields is playing. I think that they're protecting the draft pick, Miles.
I don't think it's hard to justify the decision at this point. I mean, you're protecting the player just as much as the draft pick.
Right.
And if there, well, let's just say it this way, because we talked about this a little bit. There's no way that Ryan Poles needs one more game to know what he has in Justin Fields. You know what I mean? Especially this one. So it's not like he's sitting there going, gosh, just one more game of evaluation would really tell me if Justin Fields is my guy or not. He's made that decision, right? Like he's had to have made that decision by now. You've got plenty of tape to look at from this season. Up and down, right? There's plenty of mistakes to analyze. You can decide for yourself whether you think those are correctable or not. I think for the most part, it all looks pretty correctable to me. He's got intangible leadership qualities. I don't think there's any question that this is his guy. So you don't gain anything by him playing a game where winning accomplishes nothing. That was one thing we talked about before, but about front offices tanking, not players. That's exactly that. Like when you've not made the playoffs as a front office, there's no difference between winning 3 games or 4 games or 5 games. You're out of the playoffs. You're not accomplishing anything, between that difference. And you can say, well, we play to win. Sure you do. But again, this is the last week of the season and winning accomplishes absolutely nothing. So you can go out and try to win, but you're going to make the decision to do that without your best player, right? and I don't think you'd be like, he's got a hip injury. You can make up an injury at this point, and people be like, yeah, it's fine. Like he's obviously, let him sit. So yeah, I agree with you there. This is a front office thing, and I think you can look at it from either angle as far as protecting their draft pick or protecting the player in Justin Fields. It makes sense. Yeah. Makes total sense. I think it's the right move. But, there's so many things that happen in these NFL games. There's so many times that a game turns out you're just like, goodness, I did not see that happening. Well, guess what? Bears by freaking 90 this week against those stupid purple people from the West. Anyway, sorry.
No worries.
Didn't mean to hijack your segment there.
Trust me, if there's ever a team I want to beat, it's definitely Minnesota. I think circumstances here, take a step back, remove the emotion. It makes sense to lose this game.
For sure.
I will say just one point to the protecting the player versus protecting the draft pick. Here's why I believe that it's a move to protect the draft pick and they get the benefit of the doubt with the player. Because he's 64 yards away from an NFL record of quarterback rush yards in one season, which is currently held by Lamar Jackson and the top three are Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, and Michael Vick. So that's
Whew,
I mean,
what a
what a
group.
group, right? I mean, we're talking elite
Jeez.
rushing quarterbacks. Lots to criticize about a quarterback, whether it's passing the
Still.
passing game, passing stats, QB ratings, etc. But when we're just talking about this one specific stat line where he's in contention for an NFL record, that's where I say this is one of those where it's like more centric about the future of the franchise in the draft capital category versus, hey, let's protect our franchise quarterback. And this might be a little bit surprising to you because I think I've been one of the biggest Justin Fields supporters and try to block out all the noise with the franchise quarterback. I think that him being immune to criticism is also the wrong approach, right? And I think that these last two games, albeit running for his life, and here's where I start making a case for the supporting cast, but he's running for his life and not being effective as a passer. Um, and that's a double edged sword because it's like, okay, well, who's he passing the ball to? And who's protecting him, right? And I think that that's
Yeah.
where it's that slippery slope of can you get a true valuation of him or not? Because he's leaving so much to be desired in the passing game. Yes, he has all of these 50-yard, 60-yard touchdowns, highlights, game film where he's throwing the ball, putting on a rope, and hitting receivers in stride, but just not a lot of it, right? I mean, he does it a lot, but there's not a lot of that sample size. So yeah, that's me being critical of Justin, and that's why I think if you were trying to protect your franchise quarterback, I think that it would need to be a legitimate support cast around him to say, "Hey, this is our franchise guy." So for me, why I think it is the draft capital is because they're not giving him that chance to even go out there and get those 64 yards and then pull him from the game, if that makes sense, right? Because what can happen while he's getting those 64 yards is maybe he can light up the scoreboard while he's doing that. So not,
He
you know what I'm
might.
saying? So not giving him a chance. Miles, he had 104 rushing yards in the first quarter where they were
I
leading the
know. I saw
Lions,
that.
right? So they were leading the Lions,
Yeah.
and I mean Luke Getzey, God bless him. I don't know how you could still be calling design quarterback runs with Justin with one leg, one shoulder. I mean the kid's basically falling apart at this point with all the hits that he's taking. But that's why I think that it's not a protecting the player thing. Because if you're protecting the player, you're thinking of the player, right? And you're giving him an out.
Should have been doing that
Yeah,
before.
exactly.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, either way, it's a decision that makes sense to me. And again, this is where we can get a lot more into it in the off season as we see how things unfold. But we've talked about it before with QBs and what really makes a difference. And you see so many quarterbacks with great abilities that don't work out. And it comes down to their decision making ability. And that was one of the things that I was most critical about Aaron Rodgers earlier this season. His decision making ability was dog crap. He was making terrible decisions, trying to put on a show in London. We don't need to rehash all of it, but I think if I had to guess and put money on it, I would say that that's what Poles has been working the hardest at evaluating. And maybe that evaluation evolves as you're like, no, this kid makes great decisions. Let's see how he plays in tough situations and different things like that. But from the get go, I think you're really looking to see, what is his decision making process? If he did something we didn't expect, why'd he do it? Or how often was he able to make what we would objectively call the right decision? That's definitely happening in film rooms, right? They're grading on every play. Like, did you go through your progression? Yes or no? Did you hit the right, thing based on what the defense gave you? Yes or no? I mean, that's what happens in those film rooms. So there's definitely an element of that that's been evaluated, and that's where I think early on, at least from my perspective, without having gone through my own film play-by-play evaluation of Justin Fields, the eye test says he passed that, right? Like he makes pretty darn good decisions. He's a good leader. He really has showed poise and persistence in the face of pretty ugly adversity, specifically that Cowboys game. Where he would not go away, and that Cowboys defense had to be thinking like, "Gosh, is this guy gonna go away or what?"
Yeah, he's a Terminator.
And that's why I think at least when it comes to evaluation, the record thing is not something I was aware of, but when it comes to evaluation, in my opinion, again, there's no way Poles is sitting here thinking like, "Oh man, I need one more game to know something about Justin Fields as whether he's my guy or not." Like he already knows that. Those questions have been answered. So yeah, I mean, I could see the record coming into play, and I wonder just how much Fields, the player, has acknowledged the record. But the other piece of that we got to remember is he's in his second season. I mean, he's got a long time to try to crush that record, and based on what he's working with here, with barely an offensive line and barely a supporting cast, I mean, you put some pieces around him, he should be able to run and right on through that record, in my opinion. And as a Packers fan, that scares the crap out of me. I get PTSD from Mike Vick beating us at Lambeau for the first time in the playoffs, man. Like that just shattered so many things about the Packers legend and the Lambeau Field legend, man. It just
Well, let me throw a wrinkle in there real quick, and then we can focus on the Packers matchup this week with that record comment. Is the reality, Miles, and hear me out here, is I don't want Justin to ever sniff that record ever again, right? Because that would mean, right, that he's rushing.
Yeah.
He's rushing for right now. He's at 1,143 yards. He's 64 yards away from the record. I mean, he has more yards than Dalvin Cook. He's I think right up there as being the leading rusher right now in the league. Eight touchdowns on the ground. If he comes,
that's a weapon.
But
man.
If he comes near that again, Miles, what is it? It means that again we're relying on his playmaking ability versus allowing him to move the ball downfield in a structured offense, right? Like because a lot of what's happening. Yes, they mimicked Baltimore's run first offense. And designed runs for Lamar. They mimicked that and had success. But a lot of the times when he's running, he's very literally running for his life, hitting 21 miles an hour on the ground, trying to get away from people. So why I say I would prefer he doesn't sniff this record is because I want him to settle down in the pocket. I think that happens with legitimate offensive linemen. Again, all the resources in the world to make this happen, and getting him some threats in the weapons. So this matchup against Minnesota, our leading, and this is Chicago, leading passer, leading rusher, and leading receiver, all categories are going to be on the sideline in street clothes. So with that being said, I think the Bears do have a lot to look forward to in the offseason, and I don't want to steal any thunder because we still have a potentially playoff contender on this podcast, which is Green Bay.
Let's go. No, it'll be interesting to see how things play out for the Bears. And I can understand your sentiment of not wanting to see him sniff that record again. But again, I would point back to the one that he's right ahead of on that list, and Mike Vick. And my memory may not serve me great because I was, a young man watching Mike Vick. But from what I recall, Mike Vick wasn't running for his life. That man was running because he was a weapon. And and Lamar Jackson's the same. He's a weapon for sure. But I see that in Justin Fields too, man. Like he's not just a guy he is running for his life, but he's a weapon. And when you put quality pieces around him, you can use him in ways that are going to force the defense to hesitate. Kind of what we've talked about, that being an asset for the Packers with Christian Watson. When the defense has to respect someone like, coming out of the backfield, like a quarterback or even a jet sweep type of player, it really does open up the rest of your offense. And you can build in those structured things where Justin Fields is getting 60 to 100 yards a game, not because he's running for his life, but because that's what the defense is going to give you by, having to shut down the other things that you've got around him and having to make tough decisions and hesitate doing so. So I guess the scared Packer fan in me sees this like really dangerous weapon, growing on the horizon here, and it's something the defense is going to have to contend.
Well, he ripped a 50 and a 60-yarder, both touchdowns on Green Bay this year, I think. So I think,
he's done that a lot. He's had a lot of big runs.
Ripping those on a lot of good teams.
I'd like to know how many runs over 40 yards he has. He's got to be in the top of the league in that stat.
Well,
he's had some big.
He's got some big runs. I'll put it in perspective real quick, Miles. So this week's matchup, obviously, with Minnesota. So for perspective, Dalvin Cook has 1,136 yards on the season. So Justin Fields has more. And here's the delta, right, on carries. So Dalvin Cook has 253 carries that he's racked up 1,100 yards on. Justin did that in 160 carries, 1,100 yards. So the only way you do that with half those carries is you're ripping 50, 60, 70 yarders like clockwork, right? Like, and that's what Justin did this year, which is incredibly surprising. And the last thing I'll say here to the crowd that is pounding on tables for Ryan Poles to draft a CJ Stroud or Bryce Young in that first or second draft pick is the Bears would be in that limbo loop of, okay, now you have this Bryce Young, CJ Stroud quarterback, great. But again, you don't have the offensive line or the weapons to give them any better of a fighting chance than you have with Justin right now. Just that argument alone, I don't see the logic in even entertaining a quarterback discussion. Justin's your guy. You build around him. And worst case scenario, right? And Justin's not your guy. But now you've allocated an entire 2 draft classes to the team outside of the quarterback position. Ryan Poles can then, with Justin on that rookie deal, have 4 or 5 years to build a roster. Then you go and you draft your quarterback in the top 10 if Justin's not your guy. But this upcoming draft, it's silly, it's irresponsible and reckless to even entertain that discussion of a quarterback in that first or second pick.
Yeah, I agree. I think you got to either know like that, and I don't know much about the upcoming draft class. I know a few of the names, but there's usually a left tackle that creeps into the top 5, if not the top 3. You either have to know that a player like that is your guy, to where it's not even worth trading back like 1 or 2 spots and hoping that he's there, or you got to trade back. Like, if you're not taking that, you've got to let the quarterback greed that happens, you got to let that play out in your favor. We've seen it time and time again, and unfortunately the Bears have done it themselves, where you see a quarterback up there that you fall in love with and you just throw all these assets at it, and then you're like, oh man, that didn't pan out. Well, that's great. You threw like 5 players away.
Yeah.
So you got to let somebody else make that mistake and send that to you. Yeah, I mean, and unless they pan out, then it's usually a mistake. It's usually not worth it to trade 5 potential players for 1. Yeah. So yeah, I agree with you there. But yeah, we've got an upcoming plenty of time here in the offseason to talk about all these situations. We got a potential. I'm going to call it a playoff game. It's a playoff game. If you lose, you're out. You're going home.
I think that's how the league is viewing it
win,
too, right? I mean, with the decision to flex it into prime time, I mean, it's probably safe to say it's the most exciting matchup of this weekend.
I think it is. Yeah, I think there's some others that have playoff implications, but none like this. You're at Lambeau Field. You've got the Lions.
Who cares about the?
You got the Lions
people?
Coming in. Yeah, we don't care about anybody outside of the Wisconsin Illinois corridor there. No, but yeah, I mean it's a great matchup. The Lions had a really emphatic win over the Packers earlier this season, so the Packers have all the reason to come in and try to save some face again, from that first of all. But this is a playoff game. You have to win this game or you go home. I mean, this is like a March Madness play-in game, right? So I'm pumped about it. These are the games that you get excited about as a fan. There's everything's on the line. You got to see who shows up, what happens, all that. So it is exciting. I was pessimistic about their ability to beat the Dolphins and beat the Vikings. Far more pessimistic than I am about their ability to beat the Lions. So if they keep playing the way they're playing, no spoilers yet. I mean, I think the outlook is good this week. We'll get into predictions here in a moment, but if there's something that I'm watching for here in this game, it's the defense. What are we going to see Joe Barry learn his lesson and how they played against the Vikings this last week? And stick with this game plan and actually use a shutdown corner in man coverage the way you're supposed to? Or are we going to see him outsmart himself and think, well, I did that last week, now I got to do something different this week and go back into his soft zone coverage for whatever freaking reason? There's like no good film on that. It all looks terrible. So that's my biggest thing right now is can they stick with what works instead of outthinking themselves? If they can, I think that they win this game pretty handily. We all know Aaron Rodgers' record at Lambeau in prime time. It's pretty stinking good. The guy is really, really hard to beat at Lambeau in prime time. So I think the offense continues to beat. They're pretty healthy. You got Bakhtiari back there. You got Jenkins back in there. You got Watson's in there. Dobbs is out there. Like, you've got guys healthy. This is about as much as you can ask for. The running backs are healthy. So I'm excited, man. Very, very excited. I guess I'll go ahead and make ourselves a score prediction here. Just jump into that.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I think that you're going to get everything you can from the Fighting Dan Campbells. They're not going to go away quietly. I think that they'll probably find a way to put up 17 points, but I think the Packers hit 35 points on this one. I expect a non-offensive score, whether that's another pick six from this defense that they've delivered so many of, or another kickoff return from Keyshawn Nixon. I do expect a non-offensive score. So 35-17 is what I'm going with here in this one.
35-17. So as I was listening to you, I was looking for the money line. Can't find it. So I'm trying to see what Vegas has for this matchup. So 35-17 you have going Green Bay.
That's right.
Okay. So I'm going to go with just my gut feeling here, Miles, and this is going to be raw and straight from the source. I see Green Bay winning this game.
Okay.
The last matchup was what? It was.
How long ago was
It was
that?
in November.
That
so
was
it was
rock
15-9
bottom.
was the last matchup. So I'm going to go somewhere in between this last Bears game and that last matchup, and just go with a 30-24 win. I think it's going to be a good game. I think both teams are going to come out and be ready to play, pretty pumped up. A primetime game to end the season, NFL regular season. I think it's just going to come down to a Aaron Rodgers fourth quarter game-winning drive. And punch a ticket to the playoffs. So that's my prediction.
Right.
We've all seen
Love it,
it.
man.
I mean,
Love
you don't
it.
even
No.
you don't even need to tune into the game. I'm telling you what's going to happen. Aaron Rodgers is going to get the ball back late.
The script has been written. We've seen this movie before. We know.
March
We
it
know.
downfield,
Say the line.
and Lions are going to be on the outside looking in.
Well, I hope you're right, man. I hope I'm right. I hope we are right. And it's if not, hey, we get to start this offseason early. We're
Yeah.
gonna get into we're
Tune
gonna
in
get all
next week
sorts
to
of
our
stuff.
offseason preview.
Yeah, right.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine?
Oh man, hopefully not. Hopefully there's a playoff journey for us to chew on each week, and we can start thinking about what Ryan Poles is going to do to save this
Well,
Bears team.
here's
Um,
here's the deal. So I obviously showed my cards, and I have no faith in Nathan Peterman beating the Minnesota Vikings. Miles has the prediction of Bears 90, Vikings -3, -4. I'm gonna go with a hand
Goose egg.
Minnesota the win for that Bears game. I mean, you call it 28-6, Minnesota. I am going to give you a game prediction for Lovie Smith's Houston Texans versus the
Let's
Indianapolis
hear it.
Colts. And I think that the Colts, they know very well what's on the line, and they know that if the Texans beat them, that they lose that number one pick, and I think that they're going to roll over. So I have
Oh
the
my
Texans
goodness.
winning. I have the Texans winning a 17-10 against the Indianapolis Colts.
Whew. So this is a battle of tanks. This is a tank battle.
It's a tank. I mean, Miles, read a book. Tank battles are some of the most violent battles that there can be.
Brutal.
Brutal, right? So
Oh
we're gonna
man.
see the cavalry.
Brutal.
We're gonna see the cavalry this weekend.
Fury.
We're gonna be fighting for the tank. I'll tell you what. I mean, I think Ryan Poles has
Whew.
obviously shown his cards. He's rolling out Nathan Peterman. I think that Indianapolis knows very well that if they go out and beat the Lovie Smith Texans, that they have a first overall draft pick in their division. I just think smart front offices are going to know what to do this week. I mean, they're going to fly under the radar because it's the last week of the season and a lot to critique when franchises tank. But I think we're going to see Indianapolis roll over and cost a costly rollover for the Texans. Because Miles, I mean, if you were playing me the last week of the season and you knew if you beat me that I got a number one draft pick overall, I mean, what do you do behind closed doors?
Whew. Man, yeah, you're making some business decisions,
You're
and
making business
you're
decisions,
not going to
man.
be
People
overt
don't want to
about it.
hear that, but we are the People's
You're not
Podcast.
making you're not going to be overt about it though. You're looking at your injury report, going, yeah, we don't want to risk his health. We don't want to risk his health. Let's sit this one, and that's all right. Here you go, coach. These guys got to sit out. I mean,
Yep.
you know, you can't be overt about it. There's no way they're walking in going, we can't let these guys have this pick. Right? You're just
Yeah.
thinking like, all right, hey
Well, of
guys,
course not.
nothing really to be gained here. Let's be safe and get out of this thing healthy, and get some of these young guys some experience.
There you go. And you know how you do
That's
that
the way you spend
also
that.
over uh, without causing too much alarm is you do it through the play calling, man. I mean, you just call the right plays and I mean just as much as there's data out there on what's efficient, what's effective, what play to call at the right time. I mean, you can do that with play calling vice versa. Just ask Matt Nagy. You can be completely
Oh
ineffective
yeah,
through play calling. Um, and that's what I
just
anticipate out of
totally inept.
totally inept, but not. But see, he didn't do it
Oh
strategically.
man,
Where right now, I think Luke Getsy's done it strategically.
it
I
was
mean, Justin
unintentional.
Fields absolutely disappeared in the second half of that Lions game, and that's when your front office and your coaching staff is on the same page with nobody's jobs on the line for that upcoming offseason. I think that's when decisions like that are made. When a phone is picked up from Ian Cunningham or Ryan Poles to Matt Eberflus, and then Matt Eberflus picks up a phone, calls up his offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, and says, "Hey, Luke, I need you to call the game a certain way." All right, those are real phone
Let's
calls.
let's
Those
keep it
are
short.
yeah, you keep up. You
Yeah,
keep those are real strategic moves that franchises make, and I mean, just pay attention this weekend. You're going to see some of it. I'm not saying that Indianapolis is going to roll out
business
there with practice squad
decisions.
players, but just watch that. I mean, they're playing a
Some of them might
division
be.
opponent that's playing for the first overall draft pick.
Well, and again, there is something to be said for, non BS. Some of these guys might be practice squad guys, but they might be guys that are bubble guys where the front office is saying, hey, let's figure out what we got in this guy.
Oh, absolutely.
Do we want to keep him this offseason or not? And those decisions are being made at all levels of the roster. So no doubt about that. There's business decisions happening this week, so keep your fan eyes open for things that smell different than you would expect, because this is the week that happens. But yeah, I mean, other than that, speaking of business decisions, Aaron Rodgers reportedly is no longer dating a witch. And now has transitioned over to dating the owner of the Bucks' daughter, daughter of the owner of the Bucks.
Well,
talk about a change, man. Goodness.
No, let's talk about the real issue, and that's that owners are dating owners, right? It's the owner of the Milwaukee Bucks dating the owner of the Chicago Bears. That's great, man. I went into this regular season trying not to make a whole lot of the witch story, but they're tough to get rid of, Miles. So I don't know if we've seen the last of the witch quite yet.
So maybe the Packers need to part ways with Aaron Rodgers this offseason for different reasons than we've talked about. If there's any curses to be thrown around, let's make sure they leave Green Bay.
No, when you see, that's the thing with the Packers.
Man.
They know that once they move on from Aaron, they're going to need to get like a sage committee to come in and sage the locker room, Lambeau Field. We don't know where any of the witch's brew is stored. But yeah. Golly, man! You always drop these
bring the priest in. Come on, Father,
on me. Hey, I got one for you. You broke news live on air last time with it was the Jenkins deal, right? So
with Jenkins, yeah.
So hold on to your seat, Miles, because the Bears just extended somebody. Do you know who it is?
Oh man, does he have the same last name?
No, that last name is on IR. So Tevin Jenkins is actually on IR.
Okay.
But they just signed your boy Equanimus. Shout out Miles.
They extended Equanimus.
Helping me with the pronunciation early in the podcast. Equanimus St. Brown is a Chicago Bear through next season.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned the whole empty moral victory of teaching this team how to win with half of this team not being on the roster next year. We know Equanimus will be there, and he's a great passing wide receiver, not so great at running routes and catching the actual ball. But, hey, if he's playing in that third or fourth position on the wide receiver group, I think the Bears have something there.
Yeah, I mean, even 4 or 5, I think that decision really goes to show you that he probably has quite a bit of value in the film room.
Yeah.
When Getsy's trying to teach these guys a system, especially because you can expect you're probably bringing in some younger receivers in the draft. You may not spend a first-round pick on a guy, but you might spend a second, third, fourth. And we've seen that you don't have to be a first-round receiver to come in and make splashes. So. I think that speaks to the value that he's got. He may not be your best guy on the field, but if you don't need him to be, he can be your best guy in the film room and be a huge asset. So to me, that's what that would say. I mean, it's not a long-term deal. He's just there through next season. So that's exactly what that tells me is it's like, look, we're expecting to bring in some young guys. He can help us prepare those guys. We don't really expect him to contribute much beyond that. It certainly is up to the player to change that. We've seen that before too, where a player just kind of clicks in a system at a time, with the right guys and performs better than he has in the past. But so I think that's an interesting move. Nice little bit of breaking news there. And again, kind of a testament to the fact that Poles probably looks at this like the off season's already started.
Yeah. Well, I think his off season started at the trade deadline. And we can get into that next
Yeah.
episode. But hey, my back's starting to feel a little bit better, and all because of this Deep
Hey,
Comforts Life Leaf Remedies
let's go.
topical. Why don't you remind our viewers who we're sponsored by, Miles?
Hey, y'all, listen. There's all sorts of things going on around there. There's virus after virus that pops up out of nowhere. We've never heard of any of them, but guess what? Helps against all of them. This stuff right here just boosts your immune system, adds a layer of armor to your immune system. Get these capsules on our website, lifeleafremedies.com. I have two beautiful little daughters that love to bring in whatever germs that they can find. I am always having to fight off the whatever virus is floating around out there. And you parents out there know, Sir Miguel Prado knows, there's no off days for parents. It doesn't matter if you're sick or not, man. So better off to not be sick, better off to beef up that immune system, armor up, and get you guys taken care of here. Wanted to shout this out because it is that season. I hear every day about somebody else who's got a bug, who's not feeling well. So take care of yourselves, guys. Whatever it is, guys and gals that's going on out there, you can beef yourself up and protect yourself against all of it and not have to worry. You're proactive. You're taking care of yourself, and that is going to help you feel better today. So that's what we got. LifeLeafRemedies.com. Go check it out. And last but certainly not least, OGs, we're asking a very specific favor of y'all. Please.
Yes, and
What can you do for
if
us?
you are listening to this podcast, you are officially an OG. And if you are an OG, please don't
You're an
forget
OG.
to spike that like button, leave us a comment, subscribe, and talk about us at your next tailgate. And I'll sign off with a bear down.
Hey, go, Pack, go.